بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Talking in front of Hausa students. You've all studied in the Hausa for quite some time now. You're all very learned. You ask university students as to what's the most challenging time for them in university. They'll tell you it's the Viva. Viva is the oral exam. Why? Because you have to sit in front of your professor. Usually it's professors, teachers, and that's not an easy task. And that's what I'm going through today. All of you are capable of being my teachers, having been students of the Hausa, teachers in the Hausa. So inshallah, I'm praying everything goes well. My topic, I think, was announced to you. It's learning or lessons from tragedies, how to take lessons from tragedies. The reason for this is very, very obvious. This community has gone through a tragedy some time back, the mafia tragedy. All of you know about it. Around 4 to 5 families set out to go to mafia over the holidays. And they went out fishing, the boat capsized. In the boat we had around 4 to 5 adults, 4 adults I guess, plus the crew members, a few children. Altaf Bhai Fazal lost his life. Alhamdulillah, his body was recovered. We buried him. Abiha, the 4-year-old girl who also lost her life. And Mujtaba Ballu, who is still missing. His body has not been found. Enough of a tragedy. The reason it has affected us all, it has really shaken the community, and you'll all accept it. And the reason for that is, as neuroscientists would explain, it is something called mirror neurons within our brains. It was first discovered by Giacomo Rizzolatti, a professor, a neuroscientist from University of Parma. He discovered this amongst the monkeys and chimps, this experiment that they did, that there are certain kind of neurons. Neurons are basically nerve cells which are responsible for conducting electric messages through the brains. So they discovered something called mirror neurons, which are neurons which do not only react to your own sense organs, but it also reacts to what other people go through. So a good example would be dentistry, for example. That's my profession. You might have heard that the suicide rates amongst dentists is very, very high. And one of the reasons is because of the stress that they go through. Why is it stressful? One of the reasons is this, that when we're treating patients, teeth are one of the most sensitive parts of the human body. And when the patient goes through pain, it's not only the patient who is reacting to pain, it's the dentist also who reacts, because we have mirror neurons within our brains. So that's what we always tell our patients, that pain is not only bad for you, but it's equally bad for the dentist who is treating you. So it's very important for the dentist to control the pain so that he can work stress-free. And this is nothing but mirror neurons. So all of us have mirror neurons within us, and God has placed them there so that we have empathy. We should have the capacity to feel for others. If you see the purpose of fasting in the holy month of Ramadan, one of the reasons is we should be able to face the pain that others are going through. And similarly, tragedies like this, or whatever we see around the world, we should have the capacity to feel as to what these other people are going through. So this is mirror neurons. So it has affected all of us, no doubt. Naturally, more so on the people who are directly involved in the accident, because they were there, they experienced it. There were some who just saw it, but we are the ones who just heard it. But equally, it has affected all of us. So that is one reason. But the other reason for taking up this topic, there's a hadith from our seventh Imam, Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, whereby he says, "Ma min shay'in tarahu aynak illa wa fihi maw'idah." There is nothing seen by your eye, but it has a lesson in it. You know, we take our eyesight to be so casual, like half the time we don't even realize that we are looking. But actually, whatever is shown to you, there's a lesson in it. So we need to have this habit of taking lesson in whatever we see on a day-to-day basis. It's not only tragedies, but even on a day-to-day basis, walking on the street, whatever is shown to us, there's a lesson for it. There's a lesson in it, according to the seventh Imam. And if we see the Holy Quran, the Quran is filled with examples of the past. What happened to the previous prophets, what happened to the previous people who disobeyed Allah, and it's filled with stories. So the Quran, the dua that we recite prior to reciting the Quran, they say, okay, don't just recite the Quran, make a small dua before you start. So one of the wordings says, فَجْعَلْ نَظَرِي فِيهِ عِبَادَةً وَقِرَاءَتِي فِيهِ فِكْرًا وَفِكْرِي فِيهِ اعْتِبَارًا. Oh God, make this just looking at the Quran and ibadah, and the recitation of it, make it a source of contemplation, so that I can contemplate. وَفِكْرِي فِيهِ اعْتِبَارًا. And when I contemplate and I think, it should be a source of ibra, it should be a source of lesson. Ibra means crossing from one place to the other. The abra that we have in Dubai, for those of you who have gone to Dubai, is crossing from one place to another. So every Quranic ayat has an ibra. It has a capacity to take us from one station to the other. So the recitation of the Quran should also be a source of ibra. So not only seeing and being attentive, but also recitation of the Holy Quran, and every ayah has a lesson for us and it should take us forward. So keeping this in mind and this topic in mind, so how do we take lessons from this particular incident? So firstly, there's something called black box thinking. Matthew Said is an investigative reporter. You'll see his articles in BBC. He's written this book by the name of Black Box Thinking. And he says that in hospitals, he's primarily concentrating in hospitals and other institutions. He says that the introduction of the black box within aircrafts, as you know, all aircrafts have a black box. The purpose of a black box is it records all the conversations that happen between the pilot, the pilots, the captain, the co-pilot, the captain and the stewardesses, captain and the control tower, captain and the passengers. Whatever conversation goes on within the aircraft, it's all recorded. Not only that, but all the readings. So be it fuel, be it altitude, everything is recorded within the black box. Now they say that when this was introduced in aircrafts, because of this, it has made air travel the safest mode of transport. So the purpose of introducing black boxes within aircrafts was not to start blaming the pilots and not to bring them to task or to take them to task. The whole idea of introducing the black box was that mistakes should not happen twice. If a mistake happens, we should learn from those mistakes, and every effort should be made that that mistake is not repeated again. And it has really, really helped. So whatever information they get from black boxes, usually they analyze it, and then it's put up in a public website, so everybody has access to the black box. So me and you can also have access to that black box information or whatever investigation was done, and we can all learn from lessons. And pilots have to go through that so that the same mistake is not made again. And that has made air travel the safest mode of transport. So he says that this system should be introduced everywhere. So even in hospitals accidents happen. Theater, people going to the theater, they don't wake up again, mistakes happen. But what happens in hospitals is there's a hierarchy, and doctors have this habit of hiding evidence. So whatever mistakes they've made, they tend to hide it. Why? Because they've created this system of suing doctors. So doctors are really scared that they're going to be sued by the public. So they tend to hide information, and other doctors help them. They said, today it's your turn, tomorrow it'll be my turn. So if I help you, tomorrow you'll help me. So as a result, mistakes keep on happening in hospitals because they do not share their mistakes. All the mistakes that happen in a hospital setup, it's all kept under the carpet. So other doctors don't get a chance to learn from mistakes of other doctors. So as a result, some part of the world, the same mistake will happen again. So Matthew Said is arguing that whatever mistakes happen, it should be investigated, information should be put up, all doctors should have access to that information, and we should all be able to study it so that the same mistakes do not happen again. So similarly, in this tragedy, one way of taking lesson is to have black box thinking. Now I'm not talking about the Madrasah black box. You go and sit in Madrasahs or WhatsApp groups or Facebook, and there's all sorts of information going around. Fake information here and there. Now there's a serious effort that is being made. Facebook is trying to set up an app or a program which will be filtering information. So they'll assess whether this information is fake or this information is authentic, and accordingly that information will be tagged. But incidences like this, it's considered to be a small incident as far as the globe is concerned. But rumors flying around, I'm not talking about the Madrasah black box, but professionally, people should go in and assess as to what happened. Was there an overloading of the boat? What happened? The life jackets were not enough. We are living in an age whereby we have GPS. So why wasn't the position of the boat tracked? Why wasn't the distress call tracked, in the sense received? Usually they have a capacity to send a distress call. Just 2 days back, there was a boat accident off the coast of Malaysia. For those of you who heard it, Chinese tourists were going from the mainland to one of the islands, and yesterday, from what I read, I think 25 or 30, most of them were rescued because they had the capacity to track the boat, distress people went there. And so similarly, black box thinking as far as this tragedy was concerned. So that is one way of taking lesson. And we should make sure that this does not happen again. I mean, I have gone through this myself. Alhamdulillah, we were safe. Last time I was in Zanzibar, I put my whole family on the boat. Me, my wife, 4 kids, no life jackets whatsoever. And it was not an engine boat. It was a sailboat, the normal Ngalawa. And we went out, we crossed the reef. So when you're on this side of the reef, on the east coast, it's nice and shallow. We crossed the reef, we went, we fished, and we came back, alhamdulillah. But now this was definitely an eye-opener. Similarly, other times we've gone to Zanzibar, we've gone snorkeling, we've gone fishing with kids, never thought of a life jacket. We consider ourselves to be really safe. So this was definitely an eye-opener. If we apply this black box thinking, then we make a serious effort that these mistakes should not happen again. But having a response that Kaam bali na bahari, usi cheze bahari kabisa, that attitude is not right. It will take our community backwards. We need to have a community of adventurers, people who venture out to sea, and hats off to these people. The very fact that they went out to sea, not everybody has the courage to go out to sea. So this family, people taking their own children, fine. Hats off to them. And not only that, but look at the survival rate. How many people survived this accident? And this is courage, nothing but courage. 4 to 5 hours of swimming, some very young kids, the adults, it says something about community, that there are some members who are courageous. And the sea has been used as an example in the Holy Quran, that God says He's going to test your courage through the sea. So He'll put you there, He'll put you through a storm and see how you react. And ulama usually recommend that people should put themselves in these risky situations to build up their quwwat ghadabiyya, the capacity of anger. If it's not controlled, you become like an animal. But if you nurture it properly, it makes you courageous. How do you nurture that quwwat ghadabiyya? One of the reasons specifically mentioned in Akhlaq books is expose yourself to dangers, of course within a limit, so that it builds up your capacity to take risks in life. So staying away from the sea is not the solution. We should go to sea, we should expose our children to the sea, but take the necessary precautions. Okay, so that is black box thinking. But now we need to ask ourselves. So as far as the world is concerned, the secular world is concerned, they would just apply black box thinking. People would be taken to task if there was negligence. If there was no negligence, lessons would be taken so that these things do not happen again. But that's a small portion of the lessons that we can take. But we need to ask ourselves, are we physical beings having a spiritual experience in this world? Or are we spiritual beings having a physical experience in this world? It's a fundamental question that we need to ask ourselves. If you're just physical beings and occasionally we have spiritual experiences, then this thing doesn't matter much. Then we just have to take the physical lessons, the black box thinking, and stop there. And as and when we get our spiritual experiences, so be it. But in Quran and Hadith, we are told, no, you are primarily spiritual beings and you've come to this world just for a short time to have a physical experience. So incidents like this, if we can define ourselves and answer this question, now the thinking changes. It's actually a mirror image. It turns the whole thing upside down. Spiritual lessons from this incident, and that is what matters. Physically, yes, lessons have to be taken, but it's the spiritual part that really matters, and we need to take the spiritual lessons, and that's the lesson that Imam Kadhim alayhi salam is talking about. So the surah that we recite, let's start with the Quran. The surah that we recite on Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr is the night when your decree is written, your destiny is written, and God tells you that I'm going to write destiny for you, but you should know what I'm writing. So he says in Surah An-Kabut, Alif Lam Mim, do the people suppose أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ? Do the people suppose that they will be let off because they say we have faith and they will not be tested? So the moment we say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and we call ourselves mu'mineen, we should be prepared for tests. And this is a challenge from God, that you think that you just say La ilaha illallah and that's enough. You're all going to be tested. So this time it was the turn of a few members of our community. Next time it's going to be our turn. It's going to come. And the night of Qadr, God warns us that whatever destiny I'm writing, there's going to be a test for you. So be careful. Certainly we tested those before them. So in our case, the people who went to Mafia are considered to be people before us. Certainly we tested those before them. So Allah will surely ascertain those who are truthful, and He shall ascertain those who are liars. So the purpose is to see the true level of our faith. And that's why God tests us. So this is a spiritual lesson. When we're tested like this, when the whole community is shaken, we should understand that God is just trying to find out who is truthful and who is not. It's just the level of faith that is being tested here. Surah Mulk, we recite it every time whenever there is Mayyit. الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْغَفُورُ. So God doesn't only give us a reason as to why He gives us tests, but He also defines as to why He's doing it, or what is He. So He says He just wants to see who is the best in conduct. So when a tragedy like this happens, God is assessing us. How are you responding? Not only that, but He says He is the Almighty and the All-Forgiving. This is a way of showing His might. So humans plan, but God overrides it. That's His might. And when God gives you a test, it's very likely sometimes we pass, sometimes we fail. As and when you fail, God is all forgiving. He forgives you, He gives you another chance. For those who have survived, another chance to live. Not only that, but through the incident itself, He forgives. Not only if you don't behave well or you don't pass the test is He forgiving, but through the test itself, He forgives. When He gives you a test, it's a source of forgiveness. It's We would call it passive forgiveness. If we don't actively ask for istighfar, through incidents like this, we are passively forgiven, be it a sickness, be it a tragedy. Then there's a hadith of our first Imam, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Now this is a scary hadith. For those of you who watch clips of Agha Panahian, the short 4-minute, 5-minute one, and he quotes this hadith, and it's scary, and he talks about the end of times. And you should listen to this, a 4 or 5-minute clip. He says, verily you'll be put, Imam Ali says, verily you'll be put in a tense perplexity and will be finely filtered. You know the chekechea that we have, the sieve that we have at home? So Imam says you'll be put through tests and you will be filtered. You'll be put into the sieve until you are turned upside down. A good example would be if you're looking into a washing machine and see how the clothes are tumbled all over, upside down, this way and that way. You're going to be turned upside down. Then certain people will surpass others after having lagged behind. And while those who are ahead will fall back. So in a community, we have people who we look up to and they're ahead, and there are people who are lagging behind. But Imam says you will be put through such a test, you will be filtered, you will be turned upside down, and in fact then you'll realize that people who are in front will now be lagging behind, and people who are behind are suddenly leading the pack. The test of the end of times. So tests like this is what ascertains. It has a capacity to take us forward, it has a capacity to take us backwards. So it should not be taken negatively. Spiritually, if you see, this is a mirror image of what is happening physically. Physically, everybody is like looking for reasons as to why it happened and what happened. Spiritually, it's just a chance for us to progress. This is a lesson we can take. So how does God test us? Surah Baqarah, I call this the ayat of julus. Whenever there is julus does not start until this ayat is recited. It's become a tradition now. Surah Baqarah, verse number 155. We will test you with a measure of fear. So fear, hunger, loss of wealth, loss of life, and fruits. And then God says, so these are the ways that God will test us. And then give good news to the patient ones. Those who when affliction visits them, they say, indeed we belong to Allah, and to Him do we indeed return. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. This is not only a verse for the dead, or when we hear of the dead. Even when we visit trouble, why? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Verily we are from God, but our journey is towards Him. Through this incident, we have a capacity to return back to Allah. So it's a journey that God is defining for us. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. If we had lost our path, God is bringing us back onto the right path. Wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Then the next ayat, it is they who receive the blessings of the Lord and His mercy. So the barakah and mercy that we always pray for, God says you're not just going to get it like that. He's going to put you through tests. You say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and then you have mercy and barakah that comes your way. And it is they who are rightly guided. There's another hadith which I read, but I couldn't find the source, but I've definitely read it. It says, when a person is visited by an affliction, God raises him, when he has patience towards that affliction, God raises him a level in spirituality. But there's a bigger imtihan. When he's given a chance to do good, now this is a bigger imtihan. We thought there was nothing like this, the tragedy that happened. But in spirituality, this is a lower level of imtihan. A higher level is when we are given a chance to do good, and when we do it, God raises us to a level even higher. And the highest level is when you have a chance to commit a sin, to disobey Allah, and you turn away from that opportunity. That is the highest level. So in reality, we may say that a small group of people were faced by a trial, but actually it's all of us facing trials on a day-to-day basis. And we all have a chance to raise ourselves. So the barakah and the mercy that we are talking about in this, that God talks about in this ayah, we are actually asking for it. When we do wudu, the dua that we do when we're doing Masa. Allahumma ghashini bi rahmatika wa barakatika wa afwik. What is happening? We are doing a dua, but in reality we are asking for imtihan here. Allahumma ghashini bi rahmatika wa barakatika wa afwik. God says, but I'm not going to give it to you just like that. You're going to be given a test. Or in Quran when we say ihdinas sirat al-mustaqim, God guide us to the right path. Yes, you will be guided, but not so easily. There's going to be a test according to this ayah. Another hadith of the Holy Prophet. So the other purpose, the other lesson that we can take from this tragedy is an opportunity for the people who are affected and for the people who heard about it and for the people who are being tested on a day-to-day basis like us. All of us are tested. It's a chance for us to raise ourselves spiritually. There's another hadith by our Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, Allah feeds His believing servant with ordeals, with imtihan, like a mother feeds her child with milk. So when we are faced by an ordeal, an imtihan, we take it very hard on ourselves, but actually God has taken us in His laps and He's feeding us milk, according to this hadith. Just like a mother feeds a baby, God is feeding us with imtihan. Why does a mother feed a baby? That's the only source of nourishment sometimes. So God is giving us this chance to raise ourselves, so we can take solace from this hadith. So how do we prepare ourselves? And how do we face imtihan if you are afflicted? Of course, for those of you who've been listening to the lectures that I've been giving on Saturdays, I've started this sequence as to lessons that we can take from this tragedy. So first I talked about gratitude, shukr. You know, you have these tubeless tires in cars, and sometimes they put a powder inside. So bicycle tires or car tires, they have something like a solution inside. The moment there's a puncture, it repairs it on its own. So shukr has that capacity. If you have a habit of doing shukr, it prepares us better for ordeals that we're going to face, which God has promised us. Not only that, but when we are faced with a tragedy, shukr has the ability to bring about healing. It's a dawa. Used for prevention, used for cure. The second one was valuing the day, making use of each and every day that we have. So the hadith says that a person who considers his tomorrow like a normal day has not given death his true right. If you want to understand death, and we feel that we've taken lesson from death, the biggest lesson should be that we should not consider tomorrow as a normal day. Whether we're going to see tomorrow or not, we don't know. This was an example. Thirdly, we need to start strengthening our faith. So there is another hadith by the Holy Prophet which says that the imtihan will be such during the end of times that a person will leave his house in the morning being a believer, and towards the end of the day he'll be a kafir, he'll be an unbeliever with the imtihan or with the test that he's going to be facing. So strengthening of iman. John Tiller is a motivational Christian speaker, and I got to read this article. So him and his wife have started this charity, and not only that, but they go around speaking to people. But he did not become a speaker just like that. January 9th, 2003, he says, and he writes, he says, it was a normal day. My life was going so nicely and smooth. Everything was going according to plan. We had one son, 3-year-old. Everything was going according to plan, and I was looking forward to life. And I had plans made up for my 3-year-old kid, who happened to be the only child. So this kid, 3-year-old, he pushes his small kursi, the toy chair, he pushes it to the window. The mother was doing something else. He opened the window, there's a protective screen. He moves it and he jumps out. Just 13 feet, and he falls on his head. Severe head injury, okay? The mother comes in, she cannot see the child, she goes out, looks out of the window, and the child is lying there lifeless. Calls in the ambulance, they take the child to the hospital. Well, alhamdulillah, he survived, but with severe head injuries. Okay, so he's paralyzed on one side now, he's growing up, this kid is growing up, and they've started this charity in the name of this child. So he says that this incident taught him 3 lessons. And as we are told, wisdom is the lost property of a mu'min. So take it from wherever you may find it. So this person says that it taught me 3 lessons. This incident taught me 3 lessons. And this is something that we can apply to our lives. Firstly, he says, determine your values before a crisis hits. What happens is, whenever a tragedy strikes, what you do is you start acting by instinct. And if you've not set values for yourself, it's very likely that you'll just start floating all over the place. You won't be in control. So he quotes John Maxwell. John Maxwell has written a book called Today Matters. John Maxwell says that there are very few decisions that we make in life, critical decisions. And for the rest of our lives, we just act on those decisions. So for example, our education, there was a decision that I made that I wanted to become a dentist. And now I'm living my life based on that decision that was made so many years back. I decided to get married to a woman. I got married, and now I'm living a married life based on that decision. I decided to live in Dar es Salaam. Now I'm living in Dar es Salaam. So there was a decision that had to be made, and for the rest of our lives, we just live based on those decisions, those critical decisions. So we are not making decisions on a day-to-day. Major decisions are very few in life. So he says, make sure you make those decisions wisely and reinforce them, so that when tragedies happen like this, you go back to the drawing board. You will go back to those decisions. In fact, tragedies like this will come up just to see whether those decisions were right. Those very core values will be shaken. So he says, if your core values are strong, it's very likely that this tragedy will not affect you as much. So he says that, this is John Tiller, he says when he went to the hospital, when he heard about the news of his son, he went to the hospital, the son was undergoing surgery, the wife was sitting in the corner weeping. He went to her, and the first thing he told her, okay, we will not let this incident come in between us. Because to him, the core value was marriage. Come what may, this is not going to shake our relationship. And they give statistics. This is 80% of relationships are affected by a tragedy in the family. It weakens the bond between a husband and wife. Small tragedies, be it sickness or tragedies, have this capacity. But if your core values are strengthened, if this relationship is strong and it is strengthened on a day-to-day basis, then tragedies like this will not shake it. So that is lesson 1. Lesson 2 from John Tiller. He says, work like it depends on you and pray like it depends on God. When you go out, you work as if it all depends on you. But when you pray to God, pray as if everything depends on God. So our salah should not be taken lightly. When we go and pray to God, we tell Him between Fajr and Dhuhr, we don't know what's going to happen. But oh God, give us the strength to be able to face it. And similarly, when we are praying Dhuhr, we should pray to God. So pray like it all depends on God. But when we are working, we have to give it our best, as if everything depends on us. This is lesson 2. Thirdly, he says, be willing to burn your old vision and embrace a new one. He says, sometimes it happens in a tragedy, you had a vision, like he had a vision for his son, that I'm going to take him to university, I'm going to make him this. But one accident changed everything. So he says, be willing to change that vision. He says he still goes back to this old vision, but he has embraced another vision for his son. And he is living his life. So being a bit flexible in life, embracing another vision. These are lessons. I will finish with this hadith that I saw only in the morning today. And based on this hadith of the 7th Imam, that whatever you see, it has a lesson in it. And it just came in. It was not my intention. I opened the book and I saw this hadith. So the 7th Imam again, Imam Kadhim alayhi salam. And it's very appropriate for this incident. So Imam Kadhim alayhi salam tells Hisham, his companion, he says that Luqman told his son that the world is a deep and profound ocean. The mafia tragedy happened in the ocean. Our focus is in the ocean. Whatever lessons we need to take it from the ocean at this point in time. So Luqman says, the world is a deep and profound ocean. So the ocean is not only in mafia, but our day-to-day lives. The house is an ocean, the streets are an ocean. Already many of the world creations have immersed and sunk into it. Luqman tells his son that the world is an ocean. So many people have put themselves into this ocean and have sunk. So then Luqman tells his son, so make piety, taqwa, your ship in it and sail safely. If you want to sail in this ocean, make taqwa your ship and you sail safely. Make faith your iman, the cargo. That is your provision, cargo. So faith, iman. Make trust in Allah, its sails. A boat will only move if it has a sail or it has an engine. So Luqman says, trust in Allah. وَأُفَوِّضُ أَمْرِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, that we recite every morning. Putting all your affairs in the hands of God. So trust in Allah, its sails and its engines. Your intellect should be the sailor of this boat. So make your intellect in control. Put your intellect in control of this boat. Always use your intellect. Don't get carried away by emotions. And knowledge should be its guide. They say you won't be able to use your intellect if there is no knowledge. Knowledge is the petrol to this engine of the intellect. So knowledge should be its guide. And lastly, he says, patience, sabr, should be its passengers. On that boat, there should always be passengers. There should always be patience on that boat, because you're going to face these trials. You need patience to sail through. May God give us the tawfiq, inshallah, to be able to take maximum lessons from this incident that has happened, and should enable us to apply it in our day-to-day lives. Incidents like this don't happen on a day-to-day basis, but it's an opportunity for the people who are involved to grow. May Allah give them the patience, and may God give them the capacity to grow. The intention that He had to put them through this trial, inshallah, may they fulfill this purpose. And for us who just heard about this incident, it's a lesson for us according to Imam Qadim alayhi salam. May he enable us to take a lesson and inshallah improve our lives and improve ourselves spiritually. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati ma yasifun wa salamun ala al mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.